Welcome to Crossroads. I'm your host, Joshua Phillip. Today we have Erica Jedynak with the Americans for Prosperity. And I understand you have a program you're working on, which is a Freedom for Employees program. Can you tell us about how that works and what it is?
Sure. So Americans for Prosperity, we're a grassroots organization. We're in 35 different states right now, and we support worker freedom. So a number of worker freedom policies, including occupational licensing reform, public sector labor reform, and there is a really important bill right now in Congress called the PRO Act that is very concerning because it would roll back right to work across the country.
Interesting. So for the average American worker, what does this mean in terms of when you talk about these, what you're doing and what this program you're kind of fighting against would do?
Yeah, so it's called the Protecting the Right to Organize Act in Congress right now. It's got a very deceptive name because that is not what it means. It would actually get rid of right to work policies, which is the choice whether or not to be part of a union across the country, which has been passed in dozens of states, not all 50 states, but the majority of states. And that's really concerning because choice is really important. So that workers, they can be part of a union if they want to, make the best decision from their family or not. And so we're supporting that freedom and that choice and not allowing the government to make choices for families.
And it's kind of an irony of the way unions started and what they've become. You know, in the beginning, a union, the whole idea was that workers at a company could get together and say, let's join together, and our collective voice will give us a voice in the company itself, that we can say, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that crazy thing, you need to give us a bit of a raise or whatnot, or we're all going to leave. Simple as that. And now the unions themselves have become bodies just as authoritative as the businesses themselves. And not only that, but also heavily engaged in politics, which people who work for them might not support. And so people are being compelled to join organizations that may go against their values and their beliefs, and that they may not just want to be part of in the first place, that are going to take money out of their paycheck every month.
Sure.
Yeah, so how are you approaching this from, in terms of the employee's standpoint? I know that one of the arguments for this union, forced union admissions program, I guess we could call it, is people believe, oh, well, if the union creates policies that benefit the workers in the industry, shouldn't they have to pay into it? What would you tell someone who thinks like that?
Yeah, so I would say that's the argument of free riders is they're actually forced riders because they didn't make the choice, right, to be part of that organization. The Janus versus AFSCME Supreme Court case last year actually affirmed First Amendment rights for public sector workers. So for folks who were forced to pay into government unions, it is now a choice, and it's really important that workers know their rights. It is actually good for unions, that case, because it requires that they be more accountable to their members and serve their members' needs. Just like any organization, you might privately join, whether that's Rotary, a Chamber of Commerce, it's your choice to do so. And if you don't like what they're representing, you don't have to be part of it and pay dues. To your point, though, it's a big First Amendment issue, right? You want your values to line up with the organization you're a part of. And in the case of government unions, it's an economic issue. There are many teachers around America who are paying more than $1,000 a year to be part of a union. That should absolutely be a choice.
Yeah, and not to mention the idea that really this is like a form of centralization. State-enforced centralization, where industries, not just businesses, but entire industries, are having people forced against their will to become part of these, organizations which are politically active, which do not represent the values of every person within them, whether they like it or not, but which use the name of that individual forced to join as part of the paper to go and lobby for policies that go against their values. And of course, people can, there's two angles to this. One is the workers' rights angle. The other one is the, say, freedom of political choice and, ability to engage in the democratic process. And the fact that this is being subverted by institutions which are really technically separate from government, but at the same time being enforced by government, enforced on people who may not want to be part of them. And really, I think that one of the big tests of this is going to be, if people are not forced to join the unions, then will they still join them? And if they don't join them, what does it say about that policy, right? What are your thoughts about that? Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's been interesting in states that have gone right to work. It's been a mixed bag, right? The really important thing is folks get that decision for themselves, but like in Michigan, after going right to work, there's actually an increase. Now, in the past year, since the Janus decision in my home state of New Jersey, a lot of teachers have made the choice to opt out of their unions, right? Newark Public School District is a great example. And I think, that is actually good for unions, right? To know, hey, we might need to shift focus here. Not everyone wants their hard-earned money out of their paycheck to go to politics they don't agree with, and it should go more to membership services. So I think that's a really good thing. And I was going to mention the other thing in the PRO Act, it would require that employers turn over all private contact information to unions. And so the workers would have no choice over that. We firmly believe that should be, the worker should give consent before that's just handed over. And I think that's an important part of it.
And so how is your organization fighting against this? What are you doing to try to stop this from happening?
Yeah, so we have millions of activists around the country right now who very much care about this issue. We have folks on the ground who have lobbied their members of Congress in DC, who are writing letters, making calls. And so, anyone listening in can go to americansforprosperity.org. We have an action alert where folks can learn about this disturbing, concerning legislation and actually take action, write their member really conveniently. Americans for Prosperity is a nonpartisan organization, so we are willing to work with anyone to do good and no one to do harm, particularly in this political climate, and always looking for new partners.
Great. And maybe just on a more of a personal level, what is it that makes you want to be part of something like this? What was the issue you saw that made you want to take this up in your life and kind of go on the front line, so to speak, of these issues?
Yeah, well, my home state of New Jersey, there's a lot of bad policy and things that need to be turned around. And so I've spent the bulk of my career there trying to right that situation. I think, even going back, living in North Jersey after 9/11 was really concerning. And I had started writing about just everything going on with government after that. And even to present day, my father-in-law escaped communist Poland, and so that helped me kind of shape some of my current views about why it's so important to fight for freedom in this country.
Interesting. Maybe just as a last point, any anecdotes of what your father told you, what happens when government controls every part of your life, what life was like living like that, and I assume just based on your recent, you just said that part of your work is to ensure that doesn't happen here. What were some of the lessons he left you with, maybe?
Yeah, well, my father-in-law, again, grew up in communist Poland, and at the time, government controlled what kind of job you have, who you speak to, how much income you have, even down to what kind of products you could buy. So there was a rationing of soap, shampoo, things like that. And it's really frightening when you think about it.
Great. And so just one more time, where can people find you?
Yeah, so they can go to americansforprosperity.org. My name's Erica Jedynak. Find me on Twitter. Would happy to carry on a conversation.
Great. Real pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Everyone, please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.